From Paint Creek, Texas, an Eagle Scout, a Texas Aggie, a U.S. Air Force pilot, a cotton farmer and state legislator, the longest-serving governor in the most successful state in America, from the great state of Texas, Governor Rick Perry.
It is an honor to be, it is a privilege and a pleasure to be in New Orleans, Louisiana. I got to tell you, it is good to be in the presence of men and women who love their country and who are committed to changing the destiny of this country. You know, on the eve of the American Revolution, Thomas Paine, he wrote, "It is the duty of a patriot to protect his country from its government." Yeah. You know, in 1776, our founding fathers, they rebelled against this distant crown and its edicts. They knew from experience that a government seated thousands of miles away and was inherently out of touch with the needs and the concerns of the people, and that government closer to home was more responsive and more responsible. You know, if they were to visit today, they would conclude that the style of government they fought against is alive and well in Washington, D.C. So instead of bowing to King George, we are now subject to this imperial presidency. Today, the lives of Americans are micromanaged by federal agencies that are hundreds of, if not thousands of miles away. More of their hard-earned money is being redistributed by government instead of spent on their families. And once again, citizens who are taxed enough already, they have begun to gather together in the harbor of discontent in the spirit of rebellion. I agree with Thomas Jefferson when he says that a little rebellion now and then is a good thing. And it's time to wage a rebellion on the battlefield of ideas, to once again enshrine the rights of the governed over those who govern. To move our country forward, we need to reassert the principles of the 10th Amendment. The Constitution is very clear. All powers not enumerated to the federal government are reserved for the states and the individuals. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say that Washington should control our classrooms. Nowhere in that Constitution does it say that the federal government has primary responsibility over the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, or the land that we farm. Matter of fact, I happen to think the federal government owns enough land already, and that we need more land in the hands of the private citizens. Nowhere in that Constitution does it say that Washington should take over 1/6 of our economy in failed policies like Obamacare. Government-run health care doesn't work. Just ask a military veteran. It is a national shame for those who have risked their lives for our freedom that they are left waiting for care. The same government that said, if you like your doctor, you can keep him, has failed to keep the promise to our veterans. Americans are losing faith in a government that absorbs more power, and then they say, trust us. We must elect a new generation of leaders who will return power to the states and the individuals, not rob them of it. The fact is, Democrats and Republicans, once elected, have shown a propensity to consolidate power in Washington. The centralization of power is a bipartisan offense. And returning power to the states and individuals will take bipartisan change. But if we don't decentralize power from Washington to the states, our debt and the deficits will come so large, our nation will be beyond the point of no return. And we must speak with one voice and be loud and be clear. It is the people and the states that are given power over the federal government by the Constitution, not given to the federal government alone. Every American knows that you just can't keep writing checks when there's not money in the bank account. We can't keep spending more than we have and expect our children and grandchildren to pay the bill. That road of fiscal failure leads to only one place. And it's a road that's already been traveled by countries like Greece and cities like Detroit. It's the same road that this nation is racing down breakneck speeds at. And if we don't right our course soon, this experiment in democracy will become a footnote in history long forgotten. There's only one way to solve this problem, and that is to cut spending. You know it, I know it, it is intuitive to us, it is plain common sense. We have to have the courage to stand up to the special interest, to save our country for the next generation of Americans. You realize every child born today enters the world owing $50,000. That's their share of Washington's debt. That's our legacy to our children. It is generational theft, and it has to stop. So, to shrink that debt, we not only need to cut spending, we need to grow the economy by creating jobs. See, we've tried this method that President Obama and the New York Times editorial board support. We spent close to $1 trillion on stimulus, pouring money down this bureaucratic rat hole, hoping that it would help. And the results was a huge deficit without the jobs that they promised. A record number of Americans are on food stamps. Our recovery is the weakest in 75 years. Millions of Americans have been unemployed so long that they have stopped looking. As a matter of fact, the Labor Department has stopped counting them in the unemployment statistics. Our federal government may not count them, but we cannot forget them. We need to give these Americans real hope again. We need to remove the albatross of overregulation. We need to cut corporate taxes so that jobs shipped overseas can come back home. We need to make it easier. We need to make it easier for small businesses to get credit. There are way too many small-town community banks that are spending money on legal teams to implement the Dodd-Frank regulations than they are being able to give credit out there. The solution is simple. Get the government off Americans' back and get Americans back to working. See, this overregulation and overtaxation, it's been tried before and it's failed. You have to look no further than California or New York. Think about it. Those are two states that have some of the highest taxes, the most onerous regulations. And as a result, no two states lost more personal income over the last decade than those two. This is the same approach that President Obama and the Democrats have been pushing for this whole country. But if it isn't working in the two largest states in the nation, why do you think it's going to work for this country? And leaders in those states, interestingly, know it. That's why Governor Cuomo, he has embraced the idea of tax relief to create jobs in New York. He knows he needs to be more competitive after years of overtaxation and overregulation that's chased businesses away. And you know what? He is right to do that. Now, that idea may be labeled as conservative by some. But the truth is, I think it's pointless to label it as a Democrat idea or as a Republican idea. Give credit where credit is due. It is simply a good idea. See, when it comes to jobs, some would have us believe in a false dichotomy, that we must choose between a growing economy or a healthy environment. The president likes to pit environmental, or I should say the environment, against the economy, which is why he's sacrificing tens of thousands of jobs while he is delaying the Keystone Pipeline. The truth is, he's simply pitting the narrow interest of an ideological base against the welfare of thousands of Americans. I know we can balance the need to protect the air that we breathe, the land that we work, and the water that we drink with the need to grow our industrial base and create jobs, because we've done it in Texas. Texas is the country's #1 job generator, creating creating 37%. That's right, 37% of the private sector jobs created in the last decade. Since I've been the governor of that state, that's what's happened there. And at the same time, over the decade, we reduced nitrous oxide emissions by 62%. And we reduced the ozone emissions by 23%, which, by the way, is substantially better than the national average. And with new technologies, we are making progress in cleaning our air while moving full steam ahead to grow the nation's most dynamic economy. It is time for Washington to implement reasonable environmental regulations and end its war on industry in America. It is time. When you look across this country, the best ideas are found in the states. I mean, innovative policies are being instituted in our states all the time. And I will assure you, I have never been afraid to borrow a good idea. I don't care where it comes from. No political party has a monopoly on good ideas. That's why when we were approached by a Democrat judge, he had an idea about how to change the way we handled cases of first-time, nonviolent drug offenders, folks who had admittedly made a mistake. Well, we listened to him. And like many other states in the wake of the drug problems of the 1980s, we were locking up kids for minor offenses, sending them to jail where they learned to be really hardened criminals. But now we have realized for many of these low-risk, nonviolent offenders that incarceration is not the best solution. Not for them, not for society. As a matter of fact, it can even increase the odds of that offender committing more crimes upon release. So we created these special drug courts that allow offenders to stay out of jail if they agree to comprehensive supervision and drug testing and treatment. And the results are remarkable. Texas crime rate is the lowest it has been since 1968. Repeat offenses are down. And for the first time in modern history, we are not building new prisons in Texas, we are shutting them down. So you see, treating addiction as a disease and not a crime, we're giving new hope to people who are trying to get their lives back. And no one should be confused that Texas is not tough on crime. We are. But we're getting smart at the same time and saving taxpayers money as well. Americans are looking for that type of leadership that transcends bipartisanship. They are sick and tired of the same old Washington food fights that we see too often, that people are scoring political points and they think that is more important than policy solutions. If we're to win a majority in both houses of Congress and to take back the White House, we must again be the party of big ideas. We have to address the issues of our day. Debt that is strangling our children's future. Big government programs that trap Americans in dependency. A lack of jobs, a lack of real hope. A tax code that enriches special interests and stifles innovation, and an education system that sentences certain children to certain zip codes, to lesser dreams and limited opportunities. These issues, and many more, are what will determine the fate of America. This happens to be bigger than any political party. This is about the future generations of America. And we must rise to the task and warm to the fight. For those Americans who are out of work, we have to give them real hope. For those children left in the shadows, we must offer them the light of opportunity. For those veterans left in line, we must offer them dignity. You see, we're too good a country. Too good a country to wander through the wilderness of economic darkness. We must seize our promise. Seize our promise at home and once again establish our moral authority overseas. We must live up to our promise again. Our people are the greatest hope of mankind. A nation whose Republican principles speak to the yearning of all who seek freedom. My fellow conservatives, the future of this nation is up to you, and it belongs to you. You have the power to change the future of this country. You have the power to speak to our newest hopes in addition to our age-old dreams. And you have the responsibility to stand up, to stand in the gap for future generations, to declare that you will not settle for the present-day circumstances, but to make all things new. Let's roll up our sleeves. Let's get to work. Let's rebuild America. God bless you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
All they want is everything.